everybody, I'm Phil Fatica. Welcome once again to the Millcreek Government Channel, Channel 9. This handsome devil sitting next to me is a name and a face that you all know, Tom New from WQLN TV. But in this particular instance, he is the master of ceremonies, the bon vivant man about town. He is the graduating professor.
I don't know about that.
You are giving the degree to the Erie Hall of Fame 2011 class. And that is, you take 5 people, male, female, maybe even a family, and you say, these people made our area outstanding because, and the competition to get to this level is tough.
It's tough because the one reason that gets everybody into the Hall of Fame is that they had to have done something that speaks globally, something on a global scale, you know, something that's somehow improved or, you know, just made a lot of noise, you know, that...
well, you'll be there someday.
No, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Let's start with number 1 then. Who would that be?
Number 1's an interesting, it's a chicken and egg story. The guy is Colonel Lewis Walker. Now, everybody knows Walker as the guy who opened up Talon Zipper in the Meadville area. And Meadville is part of this greater, you know, we think of this, the Erie Hall of Fame, it's really a Lake Erie region. But the question is, did he invent the zipper? No. Does he know anything about zippers? Well, not really. But he was the guy that got it started. He went to the World's Fair in 1893. This was the fair that gave us, oh, I don't know, Cracker Jacks, the Ferris wheel. Scott Joplin's Ragtime came from this fair. And he met a guy there. The guy's name was Judson, and the guy was buried way back in one of the halls, and he made something called a class locker that wasn't getting any attention at all. But Walker was one of these guys that saw it and he thought, I can do something with this. You know, and so from that we ended up with the zipper. But it was all on the sheer will of Walker's personality, because he and Judson opened up a company. They spent 10 years trying to market this. They failed miserably. He finally brought in a German engineer, because the way that the zipper worked, it was clumsy at the time. The hooks would come up and then fall into an eye. You know, so they didn't have that smooth mechanical what they have today. Well, but by the time that you know, World War I came around, he was finally selling zippers. They were remanufactured, and they are on everything today. So this is one of our guys. It's a piece of clothing that's that everybody has on the planet.
Everywhere in the world, yes. Fascinating. I love the stories you tell about these people and how they got to be who and where they were. Next on the list, very unusually interesting first name, and that would be Orange. Orange.
And the company that he started, if you go and visit this company, everything out there is Orange. Fowler Merwin, Erie's Magnetics, big international company. They have a plant on every single continent except Antarctica. And I've got to believe that if you meet the team out there, Tim Shuttleworth, he's going to put one on Antarctica.
I'm sure he will. Tim will be there, yes.
But you know, the story with Orange is every now and then, you know, you have these moments in your life and you think, well, you know, maybe the world has passed me by. Maybe I'm just a little too old. Maybe I don't get this stuff that the young kids are doing. Well, that was the case with Orange Merwin, O.F. Merwin. You know, he was 70 years old when he finally invented the thing that made him. And what he invented was a magnetic conveyor that would take little pieces of metal out of grain. It was a huge problem at the time in the 30s and 40s, because there would be this tramp, they called it tramp iron, scraps of metal that just in collecting grain would get into the grain, and then it would end up in livestock, it would end up in people. Would also end up in grain elevators. And you know, Phil, in a grain elevator, it just takes a small spark and that thing just blows up. Well, at the time, there was a brand new magnet that was just developed of 3 different alloys, and it was called Alnico. It was aluminum, nickel, and it was also copper that was in this brand new magnet. It was really strong. It was 30 times stronger than any magnet that was available at the time. And his simple invention had a conveyor belt that would run grain over a magnet, and it would catch all of that tramp iron. And he sold this with shoe leather. He really was the kind of guy, he walked this around to regional farms. And this was in the late 40s, early 50s, and it's now global company.
And I will add that Erie's Magnetics there on Asbury Road, they've just expanded northward. They've put a sizable addition on the building. A neighbor of ours has worked there for many years, and just a lovely person, and just speaks highly of everybody there, and it's a tribute to Mr. Merwin's.
Well, I think so, because that
personality.
Yeah, it ran right through to his sons, who were CEOs of the company. The current president is proud to say that they've never had layoffs at Erie Magnetics, and they're proud to call this area their home. And they support everything. If you're a nonprofit in town, you somehow receive some kind of support, either sweat equity or maybe they'll get you a check or something like that. Great company. You see
their logo on many events, absolutely. Right. All right, so we have Colonel Lewis Walker, Talon, Orange Fowler Merwin, Erie's Magnetics.
Erie Magnetics.
Peter Menin.
Yeah, this was
not familiar with Peter.
No, I think that one of the things that's most interesting about the Hall of Fame is every now and then there'll be a candidate that gets in that has got that total gotcha to it. Peter Menin, he was born here in Erie. He was born in Little Italy, near where your dad had a grocery store.
My dad's father had one on 16th and Liberty.
The family name was Manelli. He had to change the name because his brother, Louis, was also following a musical career. But Peter was a kid. At 7 years old, he started composing music. He finished orchestral pieces by the time he was 11. He went to Oberlin, really very prestigious musical school over on the far side of Cleveland. He went to Oberlin at 16. He was there for a few years. Really got inspired by a number of the teachers that he had there. Most important was probably, and I'm looking for his name right here, you'd think that I would remember this, Norman Lockwood. Okay. Well known, very well known at the time. But he went to Oberlin, and World War II broke out. He enlisted. He did the entire 4 years in World War II. At the end of the war, GI Bill, he was able to finish his education at Eastman, another very prestigious music school.
Oh, much so, yes.
By the age of 24, he had his bachelor's, he had his master's, and he was working on his doctorate. That's amazing in and of itself.
Yes.
He went on to write 9 symphonies. His second symphony was performed by a young guy named Walter Handel in 1952 in New York City.
Okay.
But probably his biggest contribution is he became president of the Juilliard School in the late 70s, and he turned the school into what it is today. He moved it to Lincoln Center.
Elaborate a little bit on Walter Handel, in case people don't know.
Walter Handel was the artistic director for the Erie Philharmonic for a number of years, from 1976 until the late 80s. And when the Philharmonic celebrates their 100th anniversary, the season of 2013-2014, one of their symphonic performances, they're going to play Moby Dick, Peter Menin's Third Symphony.
Really?
And that's going to be very exciting to see that. It's kind of like there's this Mobius strip, there's this connection with Erie people and the community and the things that we do that just runs through us.
It's just one degree of separation.
Yeah.
And you speak of the Juilliard School, the play, or the movie, I think the play, Fame, is based upon the kids that go to school there.
Right.
Yeah.
Peter was also the very first winner of the Gershwin Memorial Prize in this country.
Okay.
So and what's interesting about this guy, he's got 40 major works that he's written. He's got 9 symphonies. He's president of the Juilliard School and all of this stuff. My guess is that if we went to the Millcreek Mall and we were to ask people, Peter Menin, they would say, no, I don't get that.
Not so much.
And that's what's good about the Hall of Fame. It lets people know about people from our area who've done these global contributions, made us proud.
Let's finish the other 2, and then we'll come back and tell the people how they can submit nominees and to whom, and what the process is to choose them. Now, I will admit that this group of people, the Reed family, I've heard of the Reeds, yes.
Everybody knows about the Reeds. I believe that you really can't tell the story of Erie without talking about the Reed family. They're our first family. For I don't know, more than 100 years, this family has moved Erie from a small outpost into an international city. And the Reed family story begins with Colonel Seth Reed. He was leading group of Massachusetts volunteers. He fought in 3 battles. He fought the invasion of Canada, he fought at Bunker Hill, he also fought at Lexington and Concord. What happened to Seth and his men is that part starvation of the troops, part malaria. Finally, the company just disbanded. He left the service and went back to Boston. And he worked in a private mint house. And at the time, remember, the country was so new, we're not printing our own money. I mean, we're not even a country yet. You know, we're still fighting to become a country. So private mint houses were, you know, that's where our money was produced at the time. And he worked in a mint house, and he put the word e pluribus unum on a coin. From one come many. One from many. Yeah. You know, and that's become like the de facto motto of the United States.
Yes.
And it wasn't until "In God We Trust" became the official motto in the early 1950s that it was really, you know, but it's on every single penny printed. You know, e pluribus unum, and that was his big contribution. But it continued from there because he and his wife Hannah, they were penniless by the time that the War for Independence was over. They had nothing. They had lost all their you know, money, they lost all their property. So they, like many people at the time, they moved west and they got as far as Rochester. They were there for a while. They came to Erie. They opened up what they called the Presque Isle Hotel. It was their house, but then part of it was partitioned so that people could stay there as overnight stay. And they traded. They traded with the Native Americans. They traded with anybody that was making their way from Waterford to Lake Erie to points and beyond. And that's how they made their living, and they did very well with that. Their son Rufus continued the family business, and all the money that they made, they put into the business, so that when Rufus came along, he was putting money into shipping, to ships, sail ships, eventually into steamships. He became the largest shipper on the Great Lakes, opened up the Erie Canal. His son Charles Manning Reed became a congressman. He was the guy who helped get our next candidate started, and you know, the Reed family has just been throughout Erie's history. Very good, very strong family.
Now, are there any physical monuments that are still?
Well, for the Reed family, you do have Sarah Reed open up the home for. You know, for children. She also built the first monument in Perry Square, which was the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, and you'll see that on the west side of the park. There's the Reed home, which is the Reeds were Gannon's Old Main, and also the Erie Club. But outside of that, maybe what do you think? Something in
I just wondered,
the cemetery? I think that might be about it.
I can't think so. Okay, that's number 4. We have Colonel Lewis Walker of Talon, Orange Fowler Merwin, he's Erie's Magnetics, Peter Menon founded the Juilliard School of Music, the Reed family, probably the first family in Erie whose influence reached not only entrepreneurial ventures, but politics, building, shipping. Yeah, truly expanded Erie's reach into the world.
Well, you know, I always think of this when I think of the Reed family. It's fun to talk about e pluribus unum on every penny, but at the same time, Rufus Reed, by connecting that canal so that Lake Erie was now connected with the Ohio River, connected to the Mississippi, connected to New Orleans, Erie became an international port, connected to both, you know, to Chicago, New York, and to New Orleans.
Right. Yeah. Now, have you ever been on the Erie Canal?
Well, not the one in New York. The one that we have right here.
Yes.
You know, there are only bits and pieces of it left over.
Yes.
Yeah. So no, and I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's bits and pieces left over. Yes. All right. So number 5 is William L. Scott.
Right, William L. Scott. His family story tells the story of America, you know, because his family came here long before we were a country. His father fought in the War of 1812. Scott was born in 1828, and you know, he was born into a fairly good, comfortable, middle-class family. Scott's parents died when he was just a young boy, and so he started with a fairly comfortable life, and then all of a sudden he's an orphan in Washington, D.C. And the thing that saved Scott is he ran into a guy. Remember the Reed family? Charles Manning Reed was a congressman. He took young Scott in and as a congressional page. And really the page system is no longer used, but it was a great system for training for young men that were planning maybe a political life. Scott became an aide to Reed, and because he no longer had ties to Washington, Reed brought him back home to Erie, got him a job at on the Reed docks in Erie, and Scott learned his trade there. He learned the trade of actually managing trade, and finally he set out on his own. He was 22 at the time, and he started investing into businesses and things like that, primarily shipping and things like that. But in a very short time, he became, through investments in coal, he became the second largest owner of coal fields and coal production in the country. He owned 22,000 miles of railroad track.
Oh my gosh.
He was the first person, Scott and Company, built the train tracks that connected Missouri with the East Coast. You know, and the other thing about Scott is he became a millionaire. And you know, you think, wow, a millionaire. I mean, it was everybody's a millionaire these days, it seems. But really, the word millionaire has only been in the dictionary since 1840. Scott started making his millions just about 10 years after that. And his worth at the time that he died would probably be about $16 billion today.
Whoa.
You know, so, and now the other thing about Scott is he had done all these things outside of Scott Park, which is where his country home was.
Okay, right there on West 6th.
Yeah, in the big mausoleum in Erie Cemetery, we have nothing that touches, that mentions Scott today. I mean, really, people don't know about Scott. They don't know, you know, they'll see Scott Park, and maybe they'll think, maybe that's after the Scott family that owns Scott Enterprises or something like that. But no, it was with one of the country's first millionaires. And at the time, when you spoke about these millionaires, you talked about Vanderbilt, you talked about Carnegie, you know, maybe you talked about Rockefeller, but Scott was always on that list.
Wow. I love the fascination of these people and the resolve that they had to do their dreams in a sense. Now, lots of people follow this very carefully. How do you nominate somebody that they would like to have included, and then after that process, well, let's first of all, how do you nominate?
Okay, the nomination process is really very easy. You go to eriehalloffame.org or eriehalloffame.com. We have both of those websites. There's a tab at the top where you can go to the nomination page, and what we ask for is 250 words. And when we say that, it's not that we count the words. We just need for somebody to make an argument about putting somebody into the Erie Hall of Fame. You know, so we need about 250 words.
About a page, type
and
page.
A couple of things that are important to remember, like, you know, the Erie Hall of Fame, like other Hall of Fame organizations, we require that the person is already deceased. And the reason that we ask for that, and I get this question all the time, is, you know, it just doesn't seem fair to the living, is we don't want to have any kind of political things, you know, like if there are a lot of Pat Moynihan fans, yeah, he'll be in there someday. Or if there are a lot of Tom Ridge fans, he'll be in there someday. But, you know, we really reserve this for people that have already, you know.
Is there a time period that they have to be deceased?
There is not. Okay. But the board of the Hall of Fame, they like to leave some of these rules up for interpretation, so that if they see somebody, and John Kansas is a great example. We get a number of entries for John Kansas, and the board right now is considering him, but one of the things that they're waiting to find out, does this thing work?
Okay.
You know,
okay.
And if it doesn't work, then he would perhaps go into the Hall of Fame for another reason, because something will come of his work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you say the board, who's the board?
Well, on the board is the president of WQLN, Dwight Miller,
okay.
John Vanko from the Erie Art Museum, Marlene Moscow from PNC Bank Northwest. We have a guy, Carl Anderson from the Jefferson Institute, Michael Furman, who's now working for the county, Tom Gamble, the president of Mercyhurst College. So it's really a group of heavy hitters, and every one of those people are very much engaged. Cynthia Wyeth, and she's part of an Erie history project called the Wyeth Collection. Okay. It's an organization that is putting together a group history of Erie's African American community. Too? I am not on the board. I am not on the board. I'm apart from the board, and I work on things like getting the projects done and publicity and things like that.
Now, I know that always in the past you've put this information in many places beside the websites. Right. You just still have the kiosks?
We have the kiosks, and the kiosks are the things that our goal this year, well, first of all, the kiosks are located at the Erie Airport. It's a great distraction if you're waiting for a plane. You can learn about your history and things like that. There's some new video on there from Phil Cochran that is just amazing to see this. And also down at the Blasco Memorial Library, we're hoping to get a kiosk in at the Erie Art Museum, the brand new art museum. This year, we're working with the Jefferson Society because we want to get some sort of a portable thing, a very inexpensive, small Erie Hall of Fame that we can start getting around to different schools, because it's always been the intent of the Hall of Fame that we need to get it included into classroom curriculum, you know, because so while you're learning about World War II, maybe you can learn about John Boyd or you know, Cochrane or some of these other guys
Terry
who've
and
done
the
things.
Okay, so then the nominations come in, the committee filters them and says, we feel that these are, and then the bloodletting begins?
Well, and or
do the people who nominated have to come in and defend it?
Yeah, it's not bloodletting or anything like that, but we get the nominations.
I've heard differently.
We'll get the nomination. You know, the discussions are lively. They are very lively. You know, because after we agree on a class of the Hall of Fame, maybe like in the last 2 years, there's been agreement on 10 members, but then the question comes up, what do we want the 2011 class to look like, you know? And we like to have people there from education, people from the arts, you know, maybe people that have done their career in the military or business or something like that. Women, African Americans, you know, diversity. We'd like to get much of that in there. The way that candidates are vetted, I'll collect all the nominations, and I will work with students from either Penn State Erie or from Allegheny. I'd like to work with students from Gannon or Edinburgh or Mercyhurst as well, but right now I'm working with those students, and they're usually students that are involved in history in those different schools. And we will read the nominations. We'll often rewrite them before they go to the board, but we'll figure out, does this person fit or doesn't this person fit? And the board will get about 30 names that they will use to nominate. Yeah.
So if you're looking for a page or 250 words, this would be about that, and
something like that,
maybe just a little bit over there. That's about a page.
Ladder arguments defend why this person is from the greater Erie area, that they're no longer alive. But what did they do that touched the world on a global scale? 2
minutes left. We have Colonel Lewis Walker, noted for the what company, where?
Talon Zipper.
Talon Zipper.
Big company,
Okay. Orange Fowler Merwin. The Merwin name very familiar
Erie's Magnetics.
Erie's Magnetics. Peter Menon came from here, but his legacy will be forever, I think. Because fame should live forever.
It's a Juilliard school, very big music school that's now located in Lincoln Center in New York City. But you got to give them credit for 9 symphonies, another.
Yeah, the Reed family.
The Reed family is our first family. When you think of the Reed family, think of 2 things: E pluribus unum, it's on every penny that we make, and also they opened up Erie to the world.
William L. Scott.
First millionaire.
First millionaire.
Money.
Tom, always a pleasure. It's the Erie Hall of Fame. It's the 2011 class. Get your nomination in. He's the guy to talk to. Thanks for joining us. I'm Phil Fatika. Take care until next time.